Morning. We pick up in Numbers, and if you read the book like you're supposed to have read the book, you'll know that the first couple chapters of Numbers are a pain. There's a whole bunch of names that are impossible to pronounce, and I'm thankful that we no longer use those names. At least in America, we don't. I can't. Everybody have normal names like John or Matthew or Mark or Luke or Ashley. That one in itself is a confusing name to begin with, so we'll just leave that one off. But all the other names, why can't they be easy? But they're complicated. Now, the first couple of books of Numbers, like I said, are just a bunch of names. That's due to a census. Before the people left Mount Sinai and started their journey towards the Promised Land, God said, take a census of the people. Simple. And that's what we have those first couple of books. First couple chapters of the book of Numbers is the census. We find out who they are, their descendants, where they came from, what tribe they're from. That way they had the number before they set on their journey. And then they began their journey. And they complained. And they complained. And they bickered. And they fought. And they whined. And they cried. All these people do is whine and cry. Why can't they just be happy? Now there are two specific stories in the book of Numbers I want to focus on this morning. But if you read through all the book of Numbers, it's a great read when you get past the census. So if you struggled with it and you stopped, pick it back up because there's some good stuff in there. But chapter 13 gives us the Israelites reaching Canaan, reaching the land where they're supposed to go to. But before they go in, Moses says, we need to figure out what we're getting ourselves into. We need to see what it's like over there. We need to see what the land's like. So he selected 12 men, one from each tribe, to represent them. And he said, I want you guys to go in to the land. I want you to scout it out. See what's there. See if the ground is fertile. If it's good for crops. Find out what kind of crops grow there. See what kind of food they have. See what the people are like. See if the walls or the cities are enclosed by walls, or they're just tent cities, or they'll be easy to take over, or what have you. Find out. A fact-finding mission. Simple. Now keep in mind, God had told them, this is where you're going to be. This is the land you're going to go to. This is the land I'm giving you. So there shouldn't be any doubts. There shouldn't be any questions. And it tells us there, beginning in chapter 13, for the next couple chapters, that the 12 spies, they go in to the land. It says that the 12 men went to spy on Canaan. And as the child song goes, back from my youth, 12 men went to spy on Canaan, 10 were bad and 2 were good. What did they see when they spied on Canaan? 10 were bad and 2 were good. Some saw giants big and tall. Some saw grapes that clusters fall. Some saw God was over all. 10 were bad and 2 were good. I do the hand motions, but I can't ever do it right. And I don't want people to make fun of me. It's bad enough that I just sang. Well, I kind of sang. It wasn't really singing. But anywho. But that song is as accurate. The 12 men went to spy on Canaan, and 10 of them were bad and 2 were good. When they returned, they told Moses, we saw giants that were huge. We saw grapes of clusters that were so big. In fact, it tells us in Numbers that when they pulled the clusters of grapes out, it took 2 men to carry a cluster of grapes. That's how big these grapes were. But they saw the giants. They saw these fierce warriors, and they were fearful. And they're telling them all this stuff, and they're all worried and fearful, and we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't go in there, this isn't good, we should do it, they'll destroy us. They were afraid, except for 2 men, Joshua and Caleb. And Caleb spoke up as they're standing there, and it says, guys, who is it that told us to go? God. If God's telling us to go, then I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay. But it's only be quiet. And he keeps speaking, and he keeps on. Look at the produce we got. It tells us the pomegranates, the figs, the huge grape clusters. This land is perfect. It's flowing with milk and honey, is what Caleb says. But the people still argued with him, the 10 spies. And Joshua had his back and said, no, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. This is what God's promised us. Why are we worried? It reminds me a lot of us in today's world. We're fearful, we're worried, we're concerned. Didn't God tell us that He'd be with us? Didn't God say that He would protect us, that He would never leave us nor forsake us? So why are we worried? But back to Numbers. So Caleb and Joshua give their descriptions, and the 10 spies give theirs, and then the 10 spies go out to all the people, and they're spreading rumors saying Caleb and Joshua are off their rockers. They're dumb. Said, when we were in these towns, these guys were so big, we were like grasshoppers to them, and they'll squash us. Because they looked at us and said, you guys are nothing. And the people were ready to kill Caleb and Joshua. They were ready to get rid of Moses and get a new leader. And finally, it tells us that God said, you know what, I'm done. I'm out. I'm tired of you guys. In fact, God tells Moses, how long am I going to have to listen to these people whine and cry and complain and turn their back on me? I'm done. I'm going to bring down the plagues that I brought down on Egypt, and I'm going to wipe them all out. And Moses reminded God of His promise, the covenant that He made. But He also reminded him that, hey, all these people know that you're our God and you walk with us. What are they going to think when they see you destroy us? Now, I don't really think that Moses changed God's mind. But God did say, okay, fine. But here's the deal. That census you took, you remember those first couple chapters that are so hard to read through? All those people, they're done. They'll never see the promised land. They'll never get to taste the land flowing with milk and honey. None of them. Nobody over the age of 20 except for Caleb and Joshua. They can go in, but nobody else. I'm done with them. There are other generations, they can go, and the promise will be with them. And also, turn around. Go back where you came from. For 40 years, you're going to have to walk around in the wilderness and wait. You see, it was for 40 days that the spies went into Canaan. For 40 days, they had to wait for God to say, now you can go in. Now is the time. I want to say, I don't understand how these people could constantly turn their back on God, and turn around and walk away from Him. But we do it day in and day out. And we have His presence daily with us. We're quick to come down on Him and say, how can you do this? But we do it. So we shouldn't be too harsh on the Israelites here. We get afraid, and we get scared, and we get worried, and we doubt that God's going to protect us. But He does. And then further on in Numbers 22, it shows us how much God loves the Israelites, even though they turned their back on Him. See, they'd reached Moab. And the king of Moab saw all these people, and he said, man, these people are so numerous, they're going to wipe out everything we got. So they're like oxen grazing on the grass. They eat it all and get rid of everything. We're going to have nothing left. We got to get rid of these people. So the king of Moab calls for Balaam, a man of God, to cause down a curse on these people. So he sends messengers to Balaam and says, hey, the king of Moab's going to give you all these kind of great gifts of gold and silver and jewels and all the fine things you could want. We just need you to go with us and curse the people. And he said, okay, fine. God came to him and said, no, you're not going to do that. So he told me, I said, hey guys, God said, no, I can't go. So they go back, and the king of Moab gets a little more upset, and he sends an even larger group of people, more influential people, it tells us, to talk to him. And they tell him this, and he says, guys, I can't go. God said no. And then God tells him, go ahead. Go with him. So Balaam gets on his donkey with his messengers and these servants of the king of Moab, and they set off on their journey. And it tells us here that 3 different times. The first time the donkey comes to a pass, and the angel of the Lord is standing in the middle of the road with his sword drawn, but only the donkey sees it. The donkey passes by on the other side, and Balaam beats the donkey because it's not doing what he wants it to do. And then the angel of the Lord goes further down and to a narrow spot. And when the donkey and Balaam get to the narrow spot, the donkey tries cutting around the edge, and it pinches Balaam's leg in the wall, and Balaam beats the donkey. And then further down the road, the angel of the Lord stands there, and the donkey, he just drops down underneath Balaam. Balaam gets up off the donkey and starts beating him, and then all of a sudden, the donkey starts talking. It says, "Why are you beating me? What did I do to you?" And Balaam has a conversation with the donkey. And it says this, I want to say, what's going through Balaam's mind? That he's having a conversation with the donkey at this point. We got Dr. Doolittle here. And then finally God opens up Balaam's eyes. And he sees the angel of the Lord with his sword drawn. He says, now I see. You see, God was stopping Balaam from getting to the Israelites. He was stopping him from getting to where the king of Moab wanted him to be, to cause a curse. And God tells Balaam, don't throw down a curse. These are my people, and I love them. And when Balaam gets to the king of Moab, Balak, he explains everything to him and says, I'm not going to cause a curse. I'll go with you up there, but I can't curse the people because God said that they're his people and I can't do that. Keep in mind, this is just a few chapters earlier. God was ready to destroy these people, but he didn't. Because he loved them and he cared for them. It's amazing what God will do for people that constantly disobey him. But that's what God does. Numbers chapter 6. Verse 23 through 27 gives us what I think is the key verses of the book of Numbers that really sum up what Numbers is all about. It says, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them." You see, even though the Israelites turned their back, God wanted to bless them. Even though they turned away, God wanted to love them. And no matter what happened, how many times they denied him, no matter how many times they were afraid of doing something that he told them to do, he was with them. He wasn't going to leave them. And Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians about this. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, it says, "For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things took place as examples for us, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did, and were destroyed by serpents, nor grumble, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages is come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way to escape, that you may be able to endure it. The book of Numbers is simple, and Paul summed it up greatly right there. We're all faced with choices. Doing right, doing wrong, worrying, being content, trusting God, being afraid of what's ahead. Don't be like the Israelites. Don't fail. God is with you and will protect you and guide you. There are temptations daily in front of us, but God gives us a way out. But the great thing about God is, even when we fall, even when we fail, even when we give in to those temptations, there's forgiveness, and there's love, there's mercy, and there's grace. God had every right to destroy the Israelites when they turned their back on him. And God has every right to destroy us when we turn our backs on him. But because of his great love, we don't die. When we have Christ in our hearts, when we live our lives for him, we're forgiven. When we repent of those mistakes, we're brought back into the fold. Live your life the way you're supposed to live it. Trust God. He's with you, and he's fighting for you. Have a great week.